With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's hour number 2 of Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great to be joined by this man on the Progressive Guest Line as we've got Mike Calabrese aboard. He does a tremendous job over at Action Network taking a look at all things college sports. And Mike, great to have you aboard. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This is the best time of year. We're getting colossal, 1 versus 2 matchups left and right. We got a lot to discuss and a lot to look forward to with 2 more on Sunday.
Absolutely. And what did you make out of the 2 finals that we saw on Saturday? Because we saw one nip and tuck game with Florida needing to come back from down 9 with less than 3 minutes to go in order to be able to advance. And for Duke, well, certainly was not that adventurous as they had pretty much hold of that game throughout against Alabama.
From a game script perspective, if you told me that Texas Tech would win the turnover battle, they'd win the offensive rebounding battle, they'd make more threes than the Gators, and they'd get a solid performance from Chance McMillan, who had that oblique injury. He warmed up in the Sweet 16, ended up not going. All of those things going in their favor, and that's how they built the lead. For them not to win that game, you don't want to say this for a great coach like the Red Raiders have, but McCaslin, I just don't know if he is going to be able to get over the hump with this is one of those losses, and Jay Wright said in the studio right afterwards, this is one of those losses that could haunt a coach and a program because it was right there, the opportunity to do so. They outplayed them for 85-90% of that game, but you saw the hero ball from Clayton Jr., and I'm just excited because, we were mentioning off air, yes, the Cinderellas have been taken to the woodshed, and any underdog, really, it's just been a public paradise for bettors just betting on favorites. But the end result is we may just get ourselves a Final Four with all the 1 seeds, which, by the way, are historically good 1 seeds. These aren't just your garden variety. If you look at KenPom, if any of these 1 seeds win it, they're going to be one of the highest rated teams of the last 25 years. So if it's a 1v1v1v1 Final Four, I'm not complaining.
Yep, it certainly is going to be just tremendous basketball that we're going to be seeing in general. And I do think that there's going to be a lot of intrigue with these 2 Elite 8 games because you've got the first one that's going to be coming up between Houston and Tennessee. Right now, that's a line of Houston being a 3-point favorite and nice low total of 123.5 to 124. What do you make out of this matchup? Because I do find it so interesting that Houston had this draw because they pretty much had to play a road game on Friday against Purdue out there in the state of Indiana. And I recognize that it's not quite that with the folks over at Tennessee, but as we know, the SEC faithful, both Tennessee and Kentucky, they very much did flock to Indiana for this Sweet 16/Elite 8 site.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last year, heading into the tournament, you would have said if you had Tennessee deep in your bracket, well, it's Rick Barnes in March, and you can't back him. He's a regular season coach. This is 2 straight Elite 8 runs for him. So I think at this point, he's quieted some of that negativity around the program. And when you look at the Vols since February 1st, they're really balanced. They're 11th offensively per Torvik, 10th defensively. They keep that defensive mentality throughout the entire season. But the offense is caught up, and a big part of that is their guard play. When you look at what Ziegler has done, a player who just set the single season SEC record for assists, and Lanier, who basically they needed him to start running hot as a shooter, particularly from the perimeter. And he's brought that to the table during this tournament run to get them to the Elite 8. But when I look at this on paper, yes, it should be a defensive battle. The total speaks to that. But the season-long stats, in terms of which side you want to be on, would point to Houston because they have so much perimeter shooting. They have multiple guards that can go off on a given night. But the issue that I have is that when they played against slower teams, you've seen them struggle to get into a flow offensively. And when you look at it just, in that last game against Purdue, Purdue has the Matador 2-point defense in the entire country. You get everything you want inside the arc, or at least that was the narrative going in against Purdue. They only scored 62 points in that one. They had 65 in a road win against Baylor not all that long ago. And since February 1st, they've gone sub 70 points 7 times. And I think that's exactly the kind of game that Tennessee can win. And that's really where I see this value here. I think there's value on the money line for this Tennessee team. I think it's going to require some 3-point variance to go in their favor. But Houston, just by virtue of the brand of basketball that they're playing, they're just not going to speed this game up and potentially run away with it. So I think in terms of the point spread and the money line, I'm going to be on the Vols here. This was my final 4 pick before the tournament started for them to win this region. I'm not going to get off the train now. As much as, I can feel a little bit gun shy back in Rick Barnes, but I got to put faith in the guy. This is back-to-back deep runs.
And certainly with having a guy like a Chaz Lanier, he's able to take over a game, and having a veteran point guard like Zakai Ziegler, that's going to be big as well. And then on the flip side, we've got ourselves another matchup between 1 versus 2 with Michigan State right now being that 4.5 to 5-point underdog. Totals 148.5 or so with regards to this one. How do you see this playing out with a Michigan State team that certainly doesn't have the firepower from 3-point range of Auburn, but is one of the better defensive teams that we're going to find in all of college basketball?
So when you look at the Spartans in this game, taking 5.5 is the side that I gravitate towards immediately because they're a great rebounding team. They play incredible 3-point defense defending the arc, and they get to the line and they make their foul shots. That is a winning formula to take with you away from home, playing in a neutral site. It's like having a great defense and a great kicking game in college football. That just travels. And in this game as well, I think it's going to be won or lost in transition. Michigan State, 27th, 18 points per game in terms of transition offense. Auburn, 199th in transition defense. So I do think every time that they grab one of those rebounds, they're going to be pushing the tempo, having an opportunity to beat Auburn down the floor, not allowing them to set up into their half-court defense. And then when you look at what has Michigan State been lately, 11-1 straight up since mid-February. They only lost by 3 to a red-hot Wisconsin team. But if we're totally being honest, I'm taking the points blindly because this is Izzo in an Elite 8. This is his 11th Elite 8 appearance. In those previous 10 games, 9-1 straight up, 9-1 against the spread. He's just, he's a Hall of Fame coach. I have a lot of love for this Auburn team. I think they'll sneak by 2 or 3 points, but 5.5 right on that cusp of 2 possessions. I think that's too rich for a team that knows how to win in a multitude of ways. And like I said, the rebounding advantage that Auburn usually has, those second chance buckets, I think potentially could be out the window in this matchup with Michigan State.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I wouldn't want to take anything below a 5 personally with Michigan State, but I'm willing to take a 5. I'm right there with you. I was able to grab a 5.5 overnight. We'll see if it gets back to a 5.5. I think many people are thinking just like us, don't bet against Tom Izzo in March. As Mike Calabrese, he does tremendous work over at Action Network. He's joining me right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and it's going to be interesting to see what we do get in terms of the Final Four, in terms of the matchups that do get set, because we've got Florida and Duke already advanced. We're going to see who their matchups are going to be tomorrow once these 2 games wrap up. But how do you view these 2 teams? Because coming into the tournament, I did have Florida as my title winner, but certainly with the way that Duke has been playing, I feel like they've been the most dominant team in the NCAA tournament thus far. And for myself, with regards to my bracket with Florida, I'm certainly hoping that Houston might be able to win that game because I feel like they might be the best team to match up with Duke if they do match up in the Final Four.
What I find to be interesting, the narrative around Duke, it's justifiably starts with Cooper Flagg. They're talking about his pro potential, what a game breaker he is on both ends of the floor, what they do in their half-court defense. They're basically fortress-like if you allow them to set up in that half-court defense. Best of luck to you. But I think what gets lost in the shuffle a little bit is that Duke has been an offensive juggernaut. They are number 1 in offensive efficiency per KenPom. And when you look at what they've done since mid-February in games in which Cooper Flagg starts and finishes, they're averaging north of 95 points per game. I think if they had some deficiencies or some questions on the defensive end, all the focus would be on the offense. But I really think this is justifiably the best team of the last 30 years. The only bugaboo, the only real question, and we saw it rear its head at the beginning of the season, is if they get into a 1-possession game late, who is the primary ball handler? Is everything flowing through Cooper Flagg? And if that's the case, you saw it in games against Kansas and Kentucky. They just swarmed him. They said, we're going to let anyone else on this team beat us, I should say. And Duke obviously has the shooters. They have the role players around Cooper, but I still need to see that. And obviously, we're not going to get a preview of it because they're on to the Final Four already. So we'll see if this is an issue or if they can just win in a no sweat situation, 2-3 possessions, and it doesn't come down to it. But I still have my concerns just because of that scar tissue that they had earlier in the season. And with the ACC being so weak, they really didn't have an opportunity outside of that ACC conference tournament game against North Carolina to really show what they would do late in games. But without Flag on the court in that one, I still have some questions. So if it ends up being a Florida Duke national title game, I think Duke's going to pull it out. But in terms of the side I'm on, it's really just going to come down to the number.
Yep, I'm right there with you as well, and I think that is going to be so interesting to dive in on. And with regards to Florida, I think that it's going to be interesting to see who they match up with in the Final Four, because I think that they should be able to overcome either Michigan State or Auburn, because they already went on the road and knocked off Auburn a little bit earlier in the season. But it has been a little bit concerning the way that they've been playing here in the NCAA tournament, as it feels like they've been a little bit uneven throughout, but somehow, some way, as you were alluding to, they found a way to get the job done against Texas Tech here today.
Yeah, it's one thing to kind of ease into the game and allow yourself to go through lulls when you're playing against a UConn team that also has those issues offensively and ended up biting the Huskies down the stretch. Same thing with Texas Tech. Spotting them a 10-point lead, it should have cost them. I mean, we can look at the expected, win rates. They were basically dead to rights. They were less than 1% to win that game with 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go. If you do that against Auburn or against Duke or against Houston, you're not winning. You're not coming back against those defenses. So I think there's, a lot to be tightened up on the Florida side. Now, granted, their upside, you can make an argument, it's them and Duke. It's 1A, 1B when they play their absolute best basketball. So certainly there's time for them to celebrate the fact that they made it to the Final Four, kind of reset mentally, and maybe work some strategic elements to make sure that they don't get off the mat in such a slow fashion as they have in a few of these games. But in terms of their overall depth, I think that's why they just keep winning and pulling away late. They can just throw bodies at you in the front court and really neutralize teams on the glass and also give themselves secondary opportunities for second chance buckets. So the Florida team, I'm still enamored with. It will be interesting. I want to see how Auburn plays tomorrow, because if they are able to dispatch Michigan State and win going away and get a little bit of that confidence back, you look at how well they were playing in November and December. They looked like an absolute juggernaut coming off, the Maui championship. Every time they got an opportunity to play up against better competition, they were dominating. Let's see if they can get back to that, fifth gear. And if they do, then things get really interesting in the Final Four.
I do think so as well. Mike, it was great to have you aboard today. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Always great to have Mike aboard. And coming next, let's dive into these Elite Eight games a little bit more next on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It was great to have Mike Calabrese aboard, taking a look at everything that we're getting here in the Elite Eight and taking a look at what was a fun night of college basketball on Saturday. Both one seeds, they were able to survive and advance, and we will see if that is going to be the case for Sunday as well. So right now, we've got TBD with regards to Final Four as of right now, so not really able to handicap moving forward, and I personally am someone that does believe that every single game is its own living, breathing entity. Like, as of right now, if we were able to get the matchups I'm thinking that we're going to get, like, I do think that we are going to be able to get Auburn going up against Florida. I would be setting Florida as a slight favorite personally in that. And then if we do get Duke versus Houston, just by virtue of the game being out there in Texas, I do think that I would side with Houston being about like a 1-point favorite. Like, I think that they are the one team that might be able to take down Duke right now with what I've been seeing out of them. And I mean, with Duke, they certainly have been just so versatile. They are so long, but I do think that the difference maker of Milo Suzan is big. I think that he's going to be the biggest difference maker in this game with regards to what we're going to be seeing on Sunday as well. If you're diving in on this one right now with Houston, they are a 3 to a 3.5 point favorite against Tennessee. This will be the early game on Sunday, and at total, it is a 124.5, and I'm seeing at DraftKings right now, I'm seeing a 2.5. So if you have that, I'm right now in the lovely state of Nevada. I do not have access to DraftKings, but that said, if you do have access to that, might want to be taking a look at that, because if the game lands 3, and where did we see a game go from, I don't know, looking like Michigan State was going to lose outright to them being up by 6, and then the game landing 3? Where did we see that before? Yeah, you want to be getting the best of the number, if at all humanly possible. And that's been so key in this NCAA tournament, because it's the old saying of you're not betting teams, you're betting numbers. And certainly that has been the case in a lot of these circumstances. But I do think that Houston should be able to get the job done here, just because I do think that they're going to do a nice job down low against Tennessee. You've got Felix Okpara along with also Igor Milicic. These two guys have been able to give you about 14 rebounds per game, but you've got Joseph Tugler, Juwan Roberts, who I think are going to be able to hold up there. Again, with Milo Suzan, last 20 games that he has played for Houston, he's been averaging 4.3 assists to less than 1.7 turnovers per game, shooting 51.9% from three-point range, and just playing some great defense as well. Like, I'm talking up the offensive numbers, but this is one of the better plus defenders that you're going to find in all of college basketball as well. You pair that up with Emmanuel Sharp, LJ Cryer, who combined for 25 points per game, both shooting north of 42% from 3, both shooting north of 87% at the free throw line. That is a very fearsome combo, even with everything that Chaz Lanier is able to do, even with Sakai Ziegler giving out north of 7 assists per game. I think that that is just so massive in this game. I do believe that Houston is going to be able to find a way to eke this one out, get the job done. And if you do like the over, because I do personally like this total over, I would be willing to take it up to a 125. Right now, seeing that tick up in some places. We're mostly seeing 123.5, starting to see some 124s. I'm even starting to see a 124.5 out there as well. So do like that over, and I do like here Houston laying a 3, and like I said, if you're able to get that 2.5, try to take it if at all humanly possible. And something else that you do want to take a gander at is the betting splits here at VSiN, because we've got it covered with regards to both DraftKings and Circa. Circa is known for taking some of the biggest bets from professional bettors, while DraftKings, that gives you a little bit of more of a broad perspective and a lay of the land out there, so you're able to take a look at where the public money is going, and these sorts of wagers are able to move lines as well, so you get the best of both worlds. You're able to see the percentage of bets versus the percentage of handle on every single game across every major sport. That helps you make smarter, more informed bets. So you want to sign up over at VSiN.com/subscribe to be able to get this great information on the betting splits, and you're able to do so for as little as $9.99, as it is cashing out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Greg Oops Peterson holding it down, as we've got ourselves the other Elite Eight game between Michigan State and Auburn. And right now with Auburn, they open up as a 5.5 point favorite. Most places have this as a 5. I'm starting to see some 4.5s pop up as well. And again, I think that this is another case where the number is going to be very important. I did set my number to where I was willing to bet a 5 and not a half a point less with Michigan State. I was able to get in on a 5.5 when this had just opened up. So personally feeling a little bit good about that. Still would be willing to take a 5 in this spot, because with Michigan State, I think that they do a supreme job defensively of being able to hold in this game. And that's something that I do look at with Auburn. And I do think that with Auburn, they become a better defensive team as the season has been going along. They are a team that has had a few issues in terms of giving up second and third chances on the glass. This is a Michigan State team that is second in all of college basketball. At the very least, they were going into that game against Ole Miss in terms of rebound percentage. After that game, they are now down to number 3, but still doing a really good job down low, just with a holes greater than some of its parts approach with regards to rebounding. Simon Zapala, the 7-footer that comes in from Longwood. Jackson Kaler is able to give you 8 rebounds per game, and then you've had Trey Holloman doing a nice job in the backcourt, but let's call it what it is. If this Michigan State team hopes to be able to hold in the game, they need Jace Richardson to be able to step up, and he has this far. In his last 7 games, he's had 15-plus points in all but one of them. He's been shooting from three-point range north of 40% all season long, and I think that he's going to be able to continue that against an Auburn team that they do have a lot of guys that you like in the backcourt. 4 separate guys are averaging between 11 and 12.5 points per contest, all shooting at least 37.5% from 3, all making at least 80% of their free throws as well. And out of the 4 guys they've got there, you've got Todd Bedford, Chad Baker-Mazara, along with Denver Jones and company. You've got all these guys that are able to do such a nice job at the free throw line as well. But I do think that with what Michigan State is able to throw at them, with Jeremiah Fears doing a nice job dishing out about 5 assists per game, that is going to be a nice elixir there. It is an Auburn team that's been very good at taking care of the ball, but we did see them have their turnover issues against Michigan as well. I feel like that was just a little bit more, for lack of a better term, a blip on the radar, but even with them surviving and advancing here in the NCAA tournament thus far, they've had some fumbles. Like in that first half against Creighton, I feel like that was just a little bit more Creighton getting hot rather than Auburn playing bad basketball. But they did still get down in that game, and it looked like Michigan was going to be able to pull away in that game just a few nights ago as well. Like Michigan was up in that game against Auburn, I would like to say by 9 points with 12, 13 minutes remaining, and it looked like Michigan had it, and then they, for lack of a better term, they peed down their leg. Like, I wish I could call it anything else, but that was a choke job by Michigan. Like, you could give Auburn all the credit in the world, but Michigan, they just completely flushed that game down the toilet, and they clawed out defeat from the jaws of victory. And if you had the points with Michigan in that one, man, that was rough. That was really, really rough because, I mean, not only did they lose the game, they didn't even cover that game. Like, I mean, that's something that goes under the radar. You can talk about bad beats here in college basketball and all that, but, I mean, that was one of the bigger choke jobs to not get that cover on Friday. Like, man, if you bet Michigan, you certainly deserved a whole heck of a lot better than what you got there, but I do think that for Auburn, they do find a way to be able to eke this one out, get the job done, especially with all their guards being able to do a solid job at the free throw line. But I do think that Michigan State going to do a good job remaining lively in this one. So I'm going to be willing to take those points. And I'm in on the under. It's on my total 146.5. Again, I've been liking a little bit more of what I've been seeing of this Auburn defense. The offense, it's been going downward a little bit, and just to call what it is, to take a little bit more of a human approach to things as well. When you get into these big, giant pressure spots, because this is for the right to be able to go to the Final Four, when you get into these sorts of circumstances, guys clam up a little bit more. It's not often that you see a team like a Florida be able to step up in a big-time spot the way that they did. Like, all the credit in the world to Florida for the way that they were able to do so, because that's not normal. Typically, what is normal is what you see is with a team like Texas Tech, who they just were not able to execute their offense towards the back half of the game. They were doing a great job offensively for the first 33, 34 minutes of the game, and then it went completely downward. That's typically what you find in the final few minutes of a pressure spot. Any team that's able to step up, like the way that Florida did today, you have to give the credit where it is due. And what we have to do as well is take a look a little bit more at baseball as well, because I do think that we've got ourselves a tremendous slate there, as we've only got 2 games of college basketball to really be able to decipher for this Sunday. Meanwhile, for baseball, it is now all year long. It was great to be able to chat a little bit in hour number 1 with our good friend Sean Zerillo, does great work over at Action Network, and we'll try to hit all these games. If there's a game that I failed to hit upon, we've got the Baseball Betting Show back up. That podcast uploads midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, so I've got you covered every single game, every single day there. But how about if we take a look at this one? Because I think that this is the most, shall we say, intriguing game on the board. It is the Kansas City Royals facing off against the Cleveland Guardians, and the reason why it's intriguing is that Tanner Bybee was supposed to get the opening day start for the Cleveland Guardians. He had a little bit of a tummy bug. Yes, that's what I'm going to call sickness, tummy bug. That kept him out of that one. Now he's going to be going for the Cleveland Guardians, going up against Michael Wacha of the Kansas City Royals. And right now the Royals, I'm seeing them as low as a -108, as high as a -115, right around about even money, -105 with the Cleveland Guardians. Total is 8 in a lot of places. I'm starting to see a few straight 7.5s pop up as well, but this one open at 8, so it's right now starting to tick downward. And personally, I would be willing to take the 8 under. I would rather have an 8 under rather than a 7.5 over. I recognize that there's a few question marks with what you might be able to get out of Tanner Bybee, but he was very rock solid on the road last season. And Michael Wacha is just a really good, steady Eddie veteran in general. And I do think that with Kansas City, even though it's a little bit more of a hitter's paradise during the summertime, during these colder months in like March, April, I do think that you can find a little bit of an edge on the under. And with the Guardians, I don't know if they're going to be quite as good of a bullpen as they were last season, but still, they were one of the better bullpens in the big leagues last season. So as of right now, looking at the under, we'll be willing to lay up to a -110 with the Kansas City Royals, and we'll dive a little bit more in on the baseball card on the flip side right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We've had ourselves a lot of fun taking a look at college basketball, and you know what happens when college basketball season ends? Baseball season begins, as we're about 3 days into the baseball season if you don't count the Tokyo series, because Tokyo series, that was a good one for myself. You were able to see the Dodgers be able to catch a pair of nice run lines there, and that's something that I've been hyping up very much so. But now we're getting a little bit more full on into the baseball season, so how about if we do dive in on some of these games, as we have seen a lot of intrigue here early on during the baseball season. Talked about it with Sean Zero, the fact that we've got just absolutely no bullpen pitching whatsoever that has been very reliable thus far this season. We'll see if that continues on Sunday. I do think that we're going to start to see a few more unders, and I do want to be spotlighting some of these teams that do not have good offense, and I'm going to start right here with this. We go 9:53, 9:54 on the card. The Pittsburgh Pirates walk the plank to Miami, and they're going to be facing off against the Marlins. You've got Max Myers on the bump for the Marlins, and Andrew Heaney goes for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and right now, that total is 8 shaded down to the under, and with the Miami Marlins, you're going to be finding them right around about even money to minus 108, minus 110, minus 115. That is going to be your number here on the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I just take a look at these two offenses, and man, not great to say the least. Like with the Pittsburgh Pirates, O'Neal Cruz can at times be one of the best hitters on the face of planet Earth. And when he's not one of the best hitters on the face of planet Earth, he's one of the worst. There's no in between with him. Like really the lone form of consistency that you've got with them is Brian Reynolds. And I made sure to tweet this out about 24 or so hours ago, and I will bring up this stat once again with the Miami Marlins. I took a look at their starting lineup that they had on Friday, and I did the math because I was just there like, wow. They have Matt Mervis right now hitting at the cleanup spot. Matt Mervis is a cleanup hitter on a professional baseball team. And I could not believe it. So it's like, how many home runs do they have? Between everyone that had the start on Friday, all 9 position players, a combined 45 career home runs for the Miami Marlins. This will put it into perspective for you. Anthony Santander, by himself, he was number 3 in the league in home runs. He had 44. There were 2 players in Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge, that had 9+ more home runs individually last year than the entire Miami Marlins starting 9 had for their careers. Like, if that doesn't tell you the ineptitude of power right now for the Miami Marlins, I don't know what's going to do so. And now they get to face off against a guy named Andrew Heaney, who his bugaboo is giving up the deep ball. He's someone that's able to get about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. Very much a power pitcher, to say the least. And for Andrew Heaney, don't have a lot of faith in him. But bigger than that, I really don't have a lot of faith in this Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen. Like, David Bednar, he was really good in 2023. In 2024, he pooped the Bednar, and he's been doing much of the same thus far this season. It's been not great, to say the least. Colin Holderman, not holding up to his name. He is not holding down leads to save his life. You've got a lot of shakiness with regards to this Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen. And for the Miami Marlins, they did trade away a lot of their good bullpen pieces towards the back half of last season. Like, no longer do you have out there in the fold a guy like an AJ Puck, who they tried to turn into a starter last year. I could tell you right now that was not going to work out, and boy, did that not work out. So he's back to being a reliever, but now he's back with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they did have to utilize quite a few of their bullpen pieces on Saturday, because that was a game that went, I believe it was 12 innings. The Miami Marlins, I did a little bit of write-up for VSiN, and they did get the job done for us, so that was one that I felt relatively good about. But with regards to them, I mean, it's a case where I do think that the bullpen is going to be relatively solid with the guys like Anthony Bender and company, even though you had a little bit of bullpen usage on Saturday, especially with Valentin Beloso only giving you about 4 1/3 innings. I do think that they're going to be just fine, and I do take a look at this battle of 2 not so great offenses. I do like the Miami Marlins, because even though I pointed out the fact that they had so few home runs, and I mean, it's really bad when Jonah Bride is one of your best home run hitters. He's got 12 career home runs. Nick Fortes is also one of your better power guys. I think he's got 23 career home runs, has never hit more than 9 home runs in a season. But I do think that station-to-station baseball, Xavier Edwards was able to hit for a cycle last season. I do think that gives you a little bit of an edge here on the Miami Marlins. You're able to get them at plus money in a lot of spots. I'm going to be willing to take a shot here, because I do think that Max Meyer is going to be able to give you a good start. Like with Max Meyer and the cups of coffee that he's gotten at the big league level, has not necessarily panned out, but you can see in the minor leagues, he's getting north of 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's had his command issues, but I do think think that he's going to do a better job of keeping the ball in the yard and pitching out there in Miami, where it is still one of the more, shall we say, pitcher-friendly ballparks out there in all baseball. I do think that the Miami Marlins do find a way to be able to get the job done, especially with having that bullpen advantage, and especially with both teams having to use up a lot of that bullpen on Saturday. So I'm going to take a shot on the under here, and I'm going to be taking a look at the Miami Marlins on the money line. And right now we've got a lot of madness going on because it is still the month of March. Granted, it's towards the end of March, but it is still the month of March. And over here at VSiN, if your bracket has been busted, which fortunately, I had a really bad start with my bracket. I gave out all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. Feeling relatively good about that. It was a square decision, but right now, the square decisions in the NCAA tournament have been working out very, very well to this point. But that said, if you want to be able to make yourself some money here for the rest of March into April and so much more, we've got you covered here with the VSiN Pro subscription, because you get everything that we do here at the network. Our daily best bets emails from all of our VSiN shows and guests, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, full access to the VSiN Watch app 24/7, 365 in leap years, 366 days, plus our March Mania betting guide to help you be able to make more profitable outcomes and bets. Don't let your bracket busting become a, shall we say, hindrance to your winning. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe for just $9.99 and let VSiN help you make some money here this March into April. That is VSIN.com/subscribe, and that gets you covered for baseball season as well. As that's what we're talking about right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Certainly going to be diving in a little bit more on March Madness, but we've only got 2 games on the college basketball card for this Sunday. Broke them down a little bit before. We'll do so a little bit more in hour number 3, but how about if we do dive in on what we're going to be getting on the baseball front, as this is a game that I talked about last hour with our good friend Sean Zerilla, and this is one that I'm right there with him on. This is 967, 968 on the card. The Boston Red Sox are going to be on the road against the Walker, Texas Rangers. You've got old Jacob deGrom on the bump for the Rangers, and Mr. Richard Fitz is going to be going for the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox I've seen get up to about a plus 160 and even a skoge more than that, and the total on this game is 8.5. I need at least a plus 162 to take a shot on the Boston Red Sox, and I'm thinking that when this line reaches the AM, once you get a little bit more of the public money that comes in, I do think that this is going to be a line that shoots upward just a little bit more. I think that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Richard Fitz, who's this guy? His name should be Dick Fitz and everything like that. I think that there's going to be a lot of people are going to be talking about that, but he was really good in the few starts that he got for the Boston Red Sox last season. Like, he made 4 starts last season, and he was able to post up a .172 ERA. His velocity looked up in spring training. I really like what this guy brings to the table. And then you got Jacob deGrom, who he was a little bit shaky in spring training, but you know that when Jacob deGrom reaches the regular season, he's going to be his normal Jacob deGrom self. The only question is whether or not he's going to be able to stay healthy, because Jacob deGrom, ever since the beginning of the 2018 season, he has, in the starts that he's actually made, posted up a ERA of a 2.08, a fielding independent of a 2.12. He gives you north of 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He doesn't give out too many walks. He doesn't get taken deep. And for the Boston Red Sox, I just keep going back to the fact that it's nice that they've got Alex Bregman, but he always is a slow starter. Like, first 6 weeks of the year, Alex Bregman can't figure out his swing. And then when you get into June, July, those summer months, he's one of the best hitters on the face of planet Earth. You've got a Boston team that's currently dealing with Masataka Yoshida, currently being on the injured list as well. And for the Texas Rangers, Josh Young is really a guy that helps that offense come and go. When they won their World Series title 2 seasons ago, he was a big catalyst for that. He's dealing with an injury once again, and when he was out of the fold last season, you could tell that this team was completely different without him. You still have the likes of Corey Seager, you've still got Leody Taveras out there, which Taveras, he's a little bit of a hit or miss guy, but also with Adolis Garcia, he was, I wish I could call it anything else, he was awful last year. Like, if you take a look at the stretch they had from like May until September, he was hitting like the Mendoza line of 200. It was not good. So I do think that offense is going to be a little bit suppressed. Texas has been playing much more pitcher-friendly ever since they moved to Globe Life Park, and they put a roof on the stadium and should be closed in this one. So I do think that you've got some good value here with the under. I think that Mr. Fitz is going to be able to step up. If you get north of a plus 160, which I'm thinking that by first pitch it does get there, you should be able to get some good value there. We'll take that plus money with the Boston Red Sox, and I'm going to be in on that total under as well. We'll go with this one because the movie that I watched yesterday is a complete unknown. And with regards to the Baltimore Orioles, for a lot of people out there in the United States, this guy is a complete unknown, but you want to know about him. 961, 962 on the card. You've got the Toronto Blue Jays, and they're going to be playing against the Baltimore Orioles. As you've got Tomoyuki Sagano, who's going to be going for the Orioles, and Chris Bassett as the hook, line, and sinker for the Blue Jays. And right now the Blue Jays, mid-sized favorites, right around about a minus 130 or so. You're going to be catching between plus 114 to plus 120 with the Baltimore Orioles, and that total is 9. I'll make my case for the under on the flip side. I think that you want to take a look at this gentleman in Sagano. I was going to call him a young gun, but he's 35 years old, making his MLB debut, and I'm going to be willing to back him on Sunday, and I'll let you know why on the flip side right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We've got ourselves a lot to be taking a look at. We'll be taking a look at the Elite Eight games a little bit more here in the next about 45 or so minutes. If you missed anything that I broke down earlier in the hour, we will refresh that for you in the next few minutes. But we got to try to get you guys some baseball winners as well, because it's the changing of the seasons. And for myself, I'm very much a two primary sport handicapper, because I also do quite a bit of football, but let's call it what it is. I feel like everyone does some form of football. I'm a little bit more of an NFL guy. Really don't dive too much into college football, mainly because I just was never a good college football handicapper, and I think that it's very important that you hone in on these sports that you handicap well, and the ones that you don't try to force it up. And I very much learned that with regards to hockey when I tried that many years ago. I had one triumph like in 2018 with hockey, and never again for myself, but I really do two main sports, baseball and college basketball. So when one season ends, another begins, and you get a little bit of a intersection between the two, like right now. So always a lot of fun this time of year when you're able to get all day and all night sweats. And I'm making the case right now for our good friend and Tomoyuki Sagano for the Baltimore Orioles as a plus money underdog. I'm willing to take anything of plus 116 or higher, seeing a lot of plus 120 out there with Baltimore. And Sugano, he comes over after he was in the Nippon Baseball League. He's a humble age of 35 years old, but if you look at what he was able to do in the Nippon Baseball League last season, .67 ERA, gonna be a pitch contact guy. Like, this is not a guy that's gonna have wipeout stuff. He's, like I said, 35 years old, so a little bit more up there in years. Was getting just 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, which that's not a bad number out there in the NPB, because out there in the country of Japan, you will notice this if you've ever watched their sort of baseball games, and you'll notice this a lot more in, shall we say, the Asian country baseball in general, or the Asian countries in general, in terms of the way that they play baseball. When you go on over to like the KBO, the NPB, there's one out there in South Korea as well, another league that I'm forgetting the initials of it, but that said, when you look at those leagues, they very much pride themselves on not striking out. So even though you're going to be getting probably, shall we say, softer contact in a lot of those leagues, you're going to get fewer strikeouts. So I do think that that's going to play a little bit more here with regards to Sugano here in the States, and in this case the country of Canada. But for Chris Bassett, I also think that he's in for a little bit of bounce back this season, as well as he had 3.8 walks per 9 innings last year. That was his most since 2016, and that was a big reason why he did have himself an ERA that was north of a 3.8 last season for Chris Bassett. It's not like he was giving up like a whole bunch of deep balls or anything like that. He gave up less than a home run per 9 innings last season. He was getting about 8.5 to 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, which that's right around his average. Was always a relatively good command guy when he was with the A's for the few years that he was with the New York Mets as well. So I'm fully expecting a little bit of bounce back. I know that there were some rumors that he was dealing with a little bit of injury last year as well, and I do think that there is some credence in that. And for the Blue Jays, I also have a bullpen that has been less than tremendous. You've got Yimi Garcia in that bullpen, and the good news for them is the way that they've gotten blown out in 2 of these first 3 games. They didn't have to use up too many of their trustworthy relievers, but they had to go quite deep into the bullpen on Saturday because Max Scherzer, he only goes 3 innings, he gives up 2 home runs, and man, that guy is up there in years. I think that it's going to be a rough year this year for the Toronto Blue Jays. I wish I could call it anything else, but there's nothing that really leads me to believe that this team is going to be some sort of force. They were able to hang 5 runs up on the board on Saturday, but even with bringing in Anthony Santander. I've got my question marks in terms of this lineup. Bo Bichette does look like he's back to his old ways. Last year was just a disappointment, and he was unable to be out there on the field for much of the season. And I do think that Will Wagner, a guy that they traded for at the trade deadline last season, he's got a little bit of upside. He's another guy that got hurt last season, but David Schneider, it looks like, is starting to fall off. You've got guys like a Nate Lukes in the outfield, Ernie Clement. These are guys that are relative dead bats. And for the Baltimore Orioles, they are currently dealing with that injury to Gunnar Henderson, but you've got Heston Kjerstad, who I really like as sort of a platoon hitter for this team. Colton Cowser was able to go deep. I believe it was on Saturday. It might have been on Friday, but I thought that he went deep on Saturday. Adley Rutschman just does a good job of being able to move the line in general for this team. You've got Jordan Westberg, who's already had a pair of homers this year, actually a trio of homers, as he had 2 yesterday alone. So you've got a lot of power with regards to this Baltimore Orioles team. I do think that they're going to do a nice job of backing up Sugano, but I also do think that Bassett going to give you a much better start here for the Blue Jays. They're going to need him to go a little bit deeper in this one. I think that he's going to be able to do so. I set my total at an 8.1, so getting the 9, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under end. With regards to Baltimore Orioles at a plus 116 or higher, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line, as I do think that they do a nice job on that front, just like doing a nice job on the front of taking a look at all things horse racing. That would be First Bet, because First Bet, they are able to give you access to races all across the country and all across the world just at the convenience of your fingertips. You want to go to firstbet.com, and then you utilize the promo code of VSIN200. That is VSIN200. That gives you a 20% rebate on all of your wagers for the first 60 days up to $200. That's over at the number one stbet.com to be able to start wagering on some horse racing and getting in on the ponies today, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Peterson, right here on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we take a look at a little bit of National League action, as we've been taking a look at the American League a lot. This is going to be the Sunday Night Baseball game, and I think that this is going to be a fun one, as we've got ourselves the Atlanta Braves on the road against the San Diego Padres. Nick Pivetta, he makes his Padres debut, and A.J. Smith-Schwaber is going to be going for the Atlanta Braves. And for the Braves, they're right around a plus 105 to a plus 115 underdog. Between minus 123 to a minus 130 is that number on the Padres. And I felt like the Braves should be a very slight favorite here, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line. Smith-Schwaber has seen a few cups of coffee at the big league level. He really got a shot in 2023 as a young 20-year-old. Didn't get too much run last season, but I liked what I saw from him in spring training. Has really explosive stuff. Kid is just 22 years old. He was able to get in the lower level last year, about 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Sometimes does have some command issues. He's going to give up the deep ball a little bit, but we have seen it with the Atlanta Braves, the way that they have been able to just find a way to be able to find these arms. Like Spencer Schwellenbach last year is a guy that I had no expectations for whatsoever. He was able to emerge. I know that he's no longer on the Atlanta Braves, but the way that Max Fried came up in the system as well, they have been really good at being able to develop arms here for the Atlanta Braves, and I think that it's going to be no different with Mr. Smith-Schwaber. And for Nick Pivetta, this guy just always gives up the deep ball. He's got 8 career years under his belt at the big league level. He has given up at least 1.3 home runs per 9 innings in every one of those years. Now, he is going to be pitching out there at Petco, so that should be able to help things out a little bit more, because Petco is one of the more pitcher-friendly ballparks they're going to find in all of baseball. But what is unfriendly to pitchers is the fact that you have to go up against the Atlanta Braves, which fully recognize that they were completely banged up last season. That was less than tremendous for them, but now you've got Ozzie Albies back in the fold. I don't think that Marcell Ozuna duplicates that massive season that he had last season, but I also don't think that he regresses back to what he was 2 seasons ago. I think that you're somewhere between A and B. Matt Olson, after he had a season to forget last season, I think that he's going to be back to being rock solid. I don't think that he's going to be getting you the north of 50 home runs like we saw 2 seasons ago. I think that he gets you more than 30, unlike last year as well. So, again, somewhere between A and B. And then with the San Diego Padres, you know what you're going to get out of Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., but Xander Bogaerts has been a disappointment ever since signing with the San Diego Padres. You have a few guys at the bottom of the fold that can be a little bit questionable. Obviously, with regards to that outfield, it's still going to be one of the more prolific ones in all of baseball. So I do think that for the Padres, they're going to be able to get some run production, but keep in mind, this is a very good pitcher's ballpark. I think that Smith-Schwaber is going to surprise a lot of people, and I do think that for Pivetta, he's going to do a better job keeping the ball in the yard than he did when he was over in Boston along Philadelphia. So I did set my total at an 8.3 here at the 8.5. I do like the under, and I felt like the Braves should be the favorite. I like them outright on the money line. This is another one that I think is going to be a fun one, as this is another case where I think that the wrong team is favored. This is 9:55, 9:56 on the card. The San Francisco Giants hit the road face-off against the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, Bill Belichick, we are on to Cincinnati, and they're on to Nick Martinez getting the start for them, and Robbie Ray is going for the San Francisco Giants, and they say hooray to being a minus 115 favorite. Total on this game, it is 8.5, and I feel like the Reds should be closer to a minus 115 favorite. I'm going to take that plus money line right now with the Cincinnati Reds, mainly because you just don't know what you're getting with Robbie Ray. Like with Robbie Ray, I still go back to his first start that he had last season. He pitched 5 no-hit innings against the LA Dodgers, but gave up a run because he walked in a run. Like, that is a Robbie Ray experience. He's probably going to hit at least one batsman in this game. He's probably going to have like a inning where he strikes out the side on 10 pitches, and then he's going to walk like 3 other guys. Like with Robbie Ray, there's no consistency here whatsoever. Meanwhile, Nick Martinez, he's the opposite. He gave up like 1 walk per 9 innings. He's not going to blow you away with his massive wipeout stuff or anything like that, but he's a steady Eddie guy that gets the job done for the Cincinnati Reds. I do think that these young guys like Matt McClain and company going to be able to step up with their bats. Having Christian Encarnacion Strand back is very good protection for Ellie De La Cruz as well with the Giants. Have some question marks with this bullpen. I think that Camilo Duvall going to bounce back after a rough year last year, but for the Reds, they have a lot of steady guys like Ian Gabo and company in the bullpen that should be good to go on this one. I do like the Reds on the money line, and with regards to the total, I do think that you get a nice scoring expose. They call it Great American Small Park for a reason, so you're at the 8.5. Do like the over, and coming up next, we'll talk with Nick Giffen to talk a little college basketball and perhaps some auto racing as well. That's up next right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.